Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of Taking Imperfect Action with Duo Chirango. I'm Jamie, and Siad's also in the stream. We're super excited today to welcome Cassie and Adam. Over the last year, getting to work with and know a bit of Cassie's music and to play it has been one of the real highlights of what I've been doing. And while I know Adam a bit less, I've been super excited to check out his recent releases and see what he's up to as well. I think that while both of them have their own sort of styles and approaches, their music to me, it has the sort of clarity of message and also the depth of those wonderful composers like Arvo Pärt. And I hope that's a compliment to them because I mean it as such. We have a little video that they've put together for us. And then, as always, we'll get to know them a bit more. So I hope you enjoy their sets and enjoy what we have prepared today. Now I'm going to do the awkward thing of sharing my screen.
Face down, think I'm on my last life. For the first time that I remember. Lay down, think I'm on my last life. For the last time. Face down, think I'm on my last life. For the first time that I remember. Lay down, think I'm on my last life. For the last time. Face down, think I'm on my last life. For the first time that I remember. Lay down, think I'm on my last life. For the last time. Face down, think I'm on my last life. For the first time that I remember. for the last time. Face down, think I'm on my last life. For the first time that I remember. Hey, down, think I'm on my last life. For the last time. Face down, think I'm on my last life. For the first time that I remember. Hey, down, think I'm on my last life. For the last time. Face down, think I'm on my last life. For the first time that I remember. Hey, down, think I'm on my last life. For the last time. Face down, think I'm on my last life. For the first time that I remember. Hey, down, think I'm on my last life. For the last time. Face down, think I'm on my last life. For the first time that I remember. Hey, down, think I'm on my last life. For the last time. Face down, think I'm on my last life. For the first time that I remember. Hey, down, think I'm on my last life. For the first time. Face down, think I'm on my last life. For the first time that I remember. Hey, down, think I'm on my last life. For the first time. For the last time.
Woohoo! And especially congratulations for making your guitar debut. We always like to, we say silly things about it before, but we always like to publicly congratulate people for taking on the courage and the boldness to try something new. So I know I would be very scared to play a percussion instrument for you. So congratulations on playing the guitar for two guitar players. So I thought it would be cool to not do the sort of corny thing where we talk to one of you about your music and the other one of you about your music. So I tried to come up with some like common questions for the both of you. And so from having read like recent interviews about you independently, I get the sense that neither of you are like some of these prep school kids at conservatories where you were on your instrument at like 4 and you were doing that until now, right? So I know that for myself, I feel kind of like an oddity in that when I was at NEC, I imagined that I was the only person who started doing what they do in that capacity at 17. And I feel like that sort of quote unquote late start in playing classical guitar has influenced a lot of what I do now. So I'm wondering, do you feel like it's a sort of blessing to have been a bit later to your practices? Do you feel like that has influenced your respective directions? And how do you find that has affected you?
Yeah. I actually started music in general in like 5th grade, I think. I'm classically trained on clarinet, which you would not know from my recent work because I haven't played in a few years. But I actually didn't start writing music until I was 20, which yeah, compared to some prep school conservatory routes is definitely a late start. Um, I I think it definitely has shaped what I enjoy doing now and what I try to do now because I started the process as an adult or as a young adult. Um, so I didn't uh, have really much classical training to help shape my vision, if that makes sense. And then with the vocoder stuff that you heard on the set, I've only been doing that for a few years, and actually, it's totally different to me than playing clarinet because I'm not classically trained on it, and I'm don't consider myself a singer at all. I do feel like I have the freedom to um, mess up a little bit and to uh, figure it out as I go along and to experiment more.
Yeah,
Oh
uh, pretty similar. I started. I did. My first thing was guitar actually, but then I strayed for a couple decades, and started around the same time as Cassie, but also didn't start writing until I was in my 20s. I guess I think it's nice to like start in one place, and just kind of slowly go through many others, if that makes sense. Like, I maybe had like a 1 year period where I was like super into Stravinsky, where I was like, when I was like just starting college, sort of.
yeah, aren't we all?
He's still cool, like it's fine. I think it's, but then like that kind of, I don't want to say like phased out or anything, but I've done other things and just kind of kept on allowing myself to leave one thing. Never in the sense of like I quit, but more of like just being open to things because I hadn't spent a whole life being dedicated to one very specific craft, you know.
Yeah, and to kind of the point of your first instrument being the guitar and the vocoder being a new thing, I was reading about how like you were super influenced by Green Day and you wanted to start off like that, which I was thinking about this and I was like, oh, that might be embarrassing for him. So what I better say is that I wanted to be Jack White when I was young. So we've all been there, man. It's okay. Yeah.
I think we should run from that.
And so I guess what I kind of have been realizing, and what that made me think about is also in working with Cassie, she was talking about how her piece comes from also liking, pop punk and emo music and, emotions and things like that. And so I guess in looking to Jack White myself, I think about things that he's done and, I think that in some ways are not like the sort of, rock and pop punk and those styles of music, like what those artists do on the day to day has kind of influenced at least the way I see myself as having to be my own promoter, own musician, and that sort of thing. do you all think, and I guess to what degree, does being your own Green Day now manifest itself in your careers, or like what do you take from them aside from just like the influence in the music?
Yeah, be the Green Day you wish to see
Oh
more.
my god.
Yeah.
Well, I guess like I was thinking about this the other day because that information got published, and I was like, well, it's out there now. But yeah, it's no shame. I think it's just that like Green Day, like as you can imagine, like Blink-182 slides into that conversation. I don't think I do anything like aesthetically in that realm necessarily, but it was the first music that like drew me into like participating in it. And I remember learning their songs on guitar and knowing nothing about sound. So I would learn the chords of a song and not understand why it didn't sound like the record, not knowing anything about production. Like I didn't have an overdrive pedal or anything. I knew nothing about filters. So like how these certain sounds were getting, especially in like once those bands were making records in the 2000s, they started getting more heavily produced and more, I guess, imaginative in the studio maybe. And so just like not being able to understand, other than just playing ability, why I didn't sound like the record I was listening to, just from like tone, I think was the first thing that made me want to like learn about what I was doing on a deeper level. I'd always enjoyed listening to music, but I kind of just was like, okay, that's guitar and that's nice. So being like really like into a band for the first time was kind of the starting off point for like exploring what can be done with music in general.
But does that sort of thing apply to you as well, Cassie, or do you have like a differing experience?
Yeah, I do have a similar experience in the bands that I listened to, the non-classical music that I listened to early on were the first things to sort of open my ear a little bit and get my curiosity in that way. I think the first music that I connected to, and I feel like I had a late start in this too, was like in high school and college, I would go do, basement shows and bar shows. I lived in a post-American football central Illinois. So a lot of the music that I heard was very twinkly guitars and mathy, and I wouldn't say that I try to repeat that genre, but the way I try to remember how I felt when I first heard that music and keep that inspiration with me.
Yeah. So speaking of twinkling, I have to ask, like the hammer dulcimer, while we didn't get to see it today, the hammer dulcimer is so cool. And so just so everyone knows, like, how did you get it? This, I'm sorry, Cassie, is just for Adam, but like, we have to hear more about where the hammer dulcimer came from for you and like how that's been going.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know the first time that I saw one. I was aware of it for a while. I thought it was super beautiful. And then when I was maybe like 21 or 22, I was stage managing a show in Brooklyn. It was like a percussion festival. It was just a bunch of different artists back to back. And there's one artist, his name is Max ZT, like the letters ZT. That's abbreviated something. But he is a hammer dulcimer player and a really incredible one at that. And he did a show with a tap dancer who had an amplified like wooden board that he danced on, and these actually have a pretty nice TED talk if anyone wants to check it out. They do like a lecture recital sort of thing, but it was an absolutely gorgeous set, and that kind of like made me like I'd liked the instrument for a while, and then I was like, I have to do this. And I talked to Max after the show. He was a super nice dude. He told me about a guy that lives in Oklahoma. His name's David. He runs David's Dulcimers. And
Do you know where in Oklahoma?
I don't remember, but
come on.
But I'm sure it's online. Like I'm obsessed with their operation.
I'll look it up.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with their operation because it's like you go to their website. It is very like 1996 Flash website or something.
Yeah.
And I had to like call them, and I talked to his wife and like gave her my credit card number. And They're like
Bennington, Oklahoma, in Bryan County.
All right. Well, I'm sure my mom knows where that is. My like family lives in Oklahoma. That's the only reason I jumped on that. Otherwise, that's weird as hell. But yeah. Anyways, go on.
Go on.
No, it's okay. But David, it turns out, is like retired and everything, and makes these instruments mostly just because he wants to. So he sells them for like a super low profit margin, which makes them really great instruments and are far more affordable than most stuff, at least of that quality out there. In fact, mine even has a few like enhancements, like the soundboard is made of rosewood instead of whatever the default one was. I asked his wife, who like is his business manager, to just the cheapest model they had, and they're like, well, we're out of stock, so we'll give you this advanced one for the cheaper price, so you don't have to wait. So they're just like the most wholesome people ever. And after that, I started practicing, but I think because of my training, like classical percussion and everything, I really needed like pieces to work on. So Cassie wrote me a piece that's up on the web, the internet, that people can check out, and stuff like that. Even though it's more of a folk instrument, like sorry, there's a lot of improvisation, which I have worked on. I've kind of mostly put energy towards like fully notated music, just to get acquainted with the instrument, because the layout is so strange.
I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like as a percussionist, when you see a new auxiliary instrument or toy you want to try, like it started out, buying the dulcimer started out with that similar process. Like, oh, a cool new thing that I can hit and it makes noise. I'm going to buy it on the internet. Then, after you started sort of ending up building a repertoire by asking your friends to write for this thing that doesn't have a big contemporary classical music rep.
For sure. And I wrote a duo for my friend Adrienne Munden Dixon and I, that's on the latest release. She plays violin, so it's her and I playing on that track. So trying to just, I keep looking over here because the dulcimer is right here. On my latest release, yeah. Sorry, the dulcimer is right here, so I keep just looking at it. That's why I'm like this all the time. But,
You're fine.
Yeah, just finding different ways to engage with it in a way that I feel more familiar with, as I kind of try to come at it a more like authentic way over time.
It's beautiful. I'm speaking into existence that there's going to be a hammer dulcimer guitar piece one of these days. So stay tuned for that. So as we transition into like the conversation on instruments, something that people in our field love to talk about is accessibility, and sometimes they do it in a way that sometimes I feel like misses the point. But what I admire about both of you is that you in your work do just kind of use like what's around and what you have available to you, or sometimes you see something you like and you buy it from Oklahoma. But so I guess what I wanted to know is, and this will go to both of you, is I want to hear like if you can put one instrument in a backpack right now, what would that instrument be? And then if you have one, so I'm taking this now from Cassie's bio, one found text that is particularly impactful to you right now, what would that be? So to go over that again, we have one instrument in a backpack and one found text.
Oh,
how big's the backpack?
We're talking a standard backpack right now. No duffel bags, no. Yeah.
Do we have electricity where we're going?
I will concede you that. Yeah.
Okay.
You wanna go?
Yeah, I think the instrument I would choose would actually be one of your instruments. He has this Invira, the thumb piano, that I don't remember who made it.
Someone, I don't remember his exact name, but the Mbira is from Zimbabwe, and I ordered it from a instrument maker in Zimbabwe.
Yeah. I love it so much because it's, it sounds beautiful, first of all. The thumb piano is a really, really unique sound, but it's also, you can tell that it's very handmade. You can see like all the little nails, and Mbiras also traditionally have something that, like a metal something that's screwed into it that that shakes and makes this like jingle sound whenever you hit the other notes, and it has these little like crush bottle caps that when you hit certain frequencies or hit certain notes, it sounds like audio distortion, even though it's just like an acoustic, metal and wood. And he actually wrote a piece for that on his first album that I ended up remixing in July.
Someone I played today on the pipes and glockenspiel.
Yeah. So I love that little guy, and I would put him in my backpack. For text, I'm gonna pick a text that I have been reading recently, and it's is it called How to Catch a Big Fish?
I think Catching the Big Fish.
Catching the Big Fish by David Lynch, and it's just this book of like very short one-page chapters where David Lynch talks about meditation and kind of like teaches you his process of meditation. And it's been really nice to like sort of hear an artist talk about something in their life that's not necessarily their work that has affected them. It's a great book. I highly recommend it. That would be my text. Okay, you.
For instrument, I don't actually own this yet, but I'm going to commit to it. There's a really small, very popular synthesizer called an OP1 from Teenage Engineering. I'm so obsessed with it. I love the things it can do, and it's like stock sounds. I also, a lot of what I do, I take an instrument, electronic or acoustic, and then work with it within typically Max MSP, sometimes other softwares. That's kind of my go-to, is to like something I committed to when I made my first release, which was all percussion instruments and Max MSP. That the only tech I wanted besides like, amplification stuff was just my laptop. Like I was originally writing stuff with guitar pedals, and I found it, I'm so lazy that I was getting really frustrated setting them up and putting them back on the shelf.
Me too. I'm so tired of that.
I was just like, I had like a cool setup, and I was just like, I don't want to put this away, but I work on the floor a lot, so I was like sitting on the floor in this trashed our apartment. So I usually work with a laptop, and so I'm really excited to like, combine this. The synth's like that big, but it's so powerful. And just to be able to use that with, in this imagination, my laptop's also in my backpack. I hope that's okay.
That's fine. Yeah.
I'll
give you that.
I think that's my instrument. Found text, that is insanely difficult. I'm trying to think of what I've been reading lately, which is a lot of just like leftist political philosophy. That's something that's like a little bit too nihilistic, I think, right now. For whatever reason, I've been thinking a lot about, like, this is so strange, but like Vietnam themed, like Vietnam War themed art and literature. And I just suddenly, the other day, started thinking about this book called The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien, which is like a collection of stories about the Vietnam War, but it's extremely somber. Like the title text is called The Things They Carried, and it's not about like just literally their backpacks, but like feelings, and like obviously there's a lot of complexity around that period in history. Or like there's one that like I remember, this was when I was a senior in high school, and I still like lose sleep over it. It was about someone had like killed an enemy in battle, and it's like imagining their life story, and that's the whole story. So I don't know, it was a really, at least like at that time, it was a very enlightening.
Is that in the book that you were?
Yes. Okay. Yes. Yeah. So I think
like
that
you can only pick one.
it's all one book. It's a bunch of stories. I think the latter one, like just thinking about how much that affected me when I first read it, would be like my found text. I'm regretting that I like don't have more thoughts on it, because I feel like I'm like, oh no, there's too many options. But that's where I'm at this point.
I'm with you. I'm glad meditation was mentioned earlier. I don't mean to just like completely skip over the Vietnam War, but it's hard to come back from that. So I'm glad you mentioned meditation, because something that came up in the Green Day interview that really jogged my mind was the way that the writer described Adam's music as spacious, and I think that's fair for both of you, that your music kind of takes the time to do what it wants to do. And so I guess my question would be, I know what it's like to live in my mind, and it's not a very spacious place. Usually it's usually pretty jangly. There's a lot going on. And so aside from David Lynch, what ways have you all found to maintain the spacious quality, both in your minds in the last year and even before that, but also in your respective music?
Yeah, I feel like I'm a very similar way, where I do not have a naturally very spacious mind. But because of that, I really enjoy and I crave music that has that space. Something that I can go to or be in for a while. So I think that's why my music sort of goes there. It's a lot more patient than I am. It's a lot more still than I am, but it's because that's what I'm drawn to internally. If that makes sense. I I don't know if I am an expert on meditation advice or how to get there internally, but I know that creating and focusing on the journey of creating and not the actual product is how I attempt to achieve that.
Yeah, I think musically I'm pretty similar. If there's one like adjective or descriptor, I guess, that I really am drawn to, and this can apply to any sort of music, something that I feel like I can exist inside of, like something that like for whatever reason, I don't know if I can pinpoint it. It feels three-dimensional and something you can like exist in. And I try to do that with my own stuff as well, to the best of my ability, at least something that will work for me as a listener in that regard. Just however I can like create something, I don't know, circular that you can kind of be in the middle of as a listener. And then just like keeping my own mind at ease. Well, I deleted social media in the past year, which was for me a game changer.
Yeah.
I was much more at peace. My Twitter is currently active just to be like, hey, there's this show happening. It's getting deleted in like 3 hours. It comes and goes if I have something to promote because I'm a little shameless. But getting rid of that and then just putting, because I was just checking it constantly out of habit. So just getting more into just like reading books, and I'm journaling a lot because I'm like I have a lot of thoughts. Let's just shut them down. And now it's just like, even just like spewing nonsense on a page has really, really helped. And that sometimes is with words and sometimes it's with music. Like I've learned to enjoy writing with no end game in mind. Even if it's just like, I wrote a nice chord progression today and I forget about it and it never comes back. Like that's fine. It's nice to like have these more like healthy cognitive relationships with my surroundings.
Yeah, and again, shout out to you for being stronger than me for deleting your internet. Oh boy. I appreciate your vulnerability in both those answers, because sometimes you think of those questions and you're like, oh, I never really know what I'm going to get. Like, is it going to be like honest or not? And so yeah, thank you for that.
We would never lie to you.
Yes, unlike Andrew Rodriguez. So he's not watching, I don't think, so that's fine. So lastly, before we turn it over to Siad, true or false, was that really your first time playing together?
Yeah.
True. So
yeah, actually, that studio session, we kind of knocked it out in one session, and that was the first. It won't be the last time.
Yeah, we went in with just like some words and a melody, and then like wrote that song in like an hour.
Something like
and then
that.
we're like, let's just record it, and that's in the video.
So we have like 3 very different sets of musical couples present on this show right now, and so I know that, for example, my girlfriend's a trained music therapist, and she's also like a choral nerd, and like her thing is that she loves singing in choir, but she doesn't so much love the like Jamie's going to play his guitar and I'm going to sing for him sort of deal. So like we don't really gather around the table and play Schubert together. And I always know, and maybe this is just like me projecting, but I always feel a little bit of like mutual anxiety when like we show up at her church job and we have to like record something together, even though everyone loves it. So I guess lastly for me is like, when you all were doing this, were you like, yeah, this is going to be easy, no problem? Or was there like a little bit of like, oh, I don't know about how this is going to go? Or like, how did you all feel?
Well, I felt very comfortable.
So Adam has been asking me if we can jam sometime or do something like this for months, maybe a year, maybe longer. It's been a while. And I have been like, I don't know. I don't think so. Mostly because I have never been a performer in like a band setting. Every time I've performed, it's either been solo, which has only been like 2 times, maybe 3, or I've been playing clarinet in a wind symphony or a chamber ensemble, which is very different from, going in and writing something together and then performing it together. And Adam is more comfortable with that process than I am. So I was mostly apprehensive because I was like, I don't want to ruin this. But I think after, it definitely took us some time once we were in the studio. I was so anxious the entire time. But it took some time while we were in the studio to like get our groove in terms of communication. Adam came in with lyrics and a melody, and he was like, let's just try some things out. And I was like, what do you mean, let's just try something? What do we do? So it took me it took me a while to be okay with the trial and error process, and then structure and form is my jam. So that's actually where I got to contribute, where I was like, okay, let's start with this, and then eventually when you hear me do this thing, then you do that thing. And we did like a trial by fire situation and then slowly mapped it out.
Yeah, I think it took a little bit for you to feel comfortable correcting me on things, or like being like, change that, and which I'm totally okay with. I'm like, sure, what should it be instead? Like that's like the writing process that I'm most familiar with.
Yeah. Is
like group writing. And I
also didn't want to ruin yourself.
It wasn't a thing yet. It was like this little like embryonic thing, and yeah. So I was very much like not offended by anything. Like, yeah, well, what are your thoughts? And I think, yeah, you were just worried about stepping on my toes, I guess, which is very considerate, but was not an issue for me. I was just like, please, yes, feedback. Like, what do you want to do with it? But yeah, I think it was great to like have that experience and like work through anxieties or whatever, like things that didn't just happen naturally. It is way different than writing a chamber music piece and giving it to people that are strictly there to perform it and being like, you don't get to change this.
Good, but it's highly frowned upon. Yeah, thankfully, I'm very thankful that our relationship communication skills sort of transferred to this new activity.
I mean, you're like usually my first reader anything on, or as any way on anything that I'm working on. So I'm very open to feedback.
That's very nice. I know when I'm like trying to put something out into the world, I show the people that I know the closest to me last. Because yeah, I'm like, oh, me, you can have something to say. Okay. So it's funny how different that is for people. Thinking about, this past year, you all have produced a lot of things, whether it be albums and, hour-and-a-half long shows and performances. And so I'm curious as to kind of what do you hope that wasn't there pre-COVID is there post-COVID? what opportunities? Maybe it's, you all playing together or producing an album every 6 months or something.
I'm so excited to do shows again, to go to shows again. I think the live aspect of music is something that we were sort of spoiled with pre-COVID. Adam was performing a lot, and I was working as an audio engineer at shows, and I know that's something that we both miss a lot. I am weirdly grateful for this opportunity, I'll call it, to sort of reflect on what we want our next steps to be, whether that's career goals or just like creating goals. I'm excited to use that for when we have live shows again. That's one thing I really miss.
I mean, if there's one thing I hope changes, that's happened in this that I hope carries over, I feel like I've seen a lot of people really expand their like artistic identities. Most commonly, like people that were like specifically like performers, like I play my instrument and I do it really well, and that's it. That position or whatever has kind of been stripped from all of us in some way, be it entirely or just reduced intensely. Of course, like I include myself in that as a performing percussionist, and I've noticed a lot of people, and I've tried to do this myself, like get more into things like composition, for instance. I mentioned our friend Adrienne London Dixon earlier. She put out like a violin. She's a violinist, and she wrote an album for herself to play. It's really good. There's a bass player in New York named Tristan Cassie who has an album coming out. There's a one preview track available on Bandcamp, and it's gorgeous. And this is like these people getting their first foray into creating their own work, which I think everyone should do. Frankly, I think some people they have the time and nothing to lose. They're all just kind of going for it now. I should also mention, because I've worked with him a lot in the last year, Fong Tran is a composer, performer, has really dove deep into making like video art. He made one for me recently that I'm super in awe of. So I really hope that once we're back onto like, fingers crossed, a regular performing schedule or something that people won't, just go back into like specifically their comfort zone. Just, I think everyone who like wants to be an artist is so three-dimensional and capable of so many different potentials that I think people are starting to realize that for the first time in a lot of instances, and I hope that carries over.
Yeah, totally. I have to admit, whenever I see guitar players like, oh, I composed this thing, I'm like, oh, here we go. But whenever other people do it, though, I'm really like inspired. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. Like you play your instrument and you compose and you share with us. So I, even though I have my thing, I do think it's really awesome that so many more people are doing it and are willing to share that with us. So it's really cool. What other things have you all been getting into lately?
Adam has been playing a lot of chess.
That's my answer.
That's your answer. No problem. Great. That's good. What have I been getting into? I have been baking more. I have been
Cooking in general.
I've been cooking more in general. Yeah, I've been building a stronger relationship with food in general. I think, which has been really exciting for me personally. But yeah, now that we have time, we cook together a lot. We'll have, I feel like we used to like trade off with meals more. Like it would be my turn to cook, but now we will like participate in something together while listening to a podcast or a sad indie album.
Yeah, there's a lot of times during cooking when it's like, can you change it? It's too sad.
But I also have been learning to do my own nails. I don't know if you can see.
Oh, we're very familiar, Jamie and I. Yeah.
This is a lot longer than they naturally are, but I think that was one of the more selfishly devastating things of COVID was I couldn't get my nails done anymore. Because that was a very like, I think it was one of the only like for me things that I did. But yeah, it kind of feels like either a craft or like I'm doing some sort of art where it's I like put on extensions, so it takes a certain learned skill that you have to practice on. Um, yeah, I'll usually, whenever I do that, I feel like it takes 3 or 4 hours, but only because I'm just like thoroughly enjoying myself and taking my time.
I've also gotten really into I've always liked them, but I've been deep diving into horror movies in the last year, mainly because we live in a 1-bedroom apartment that we always leave the bedroom doors open to make it feel bigger. So we kind of live on top of each other, and so we started doing a thing where she is a huge fan of RuPaul's Drag Race, which I also enjoy. But it's kind of an opportunity for like you're gonna go do that, and I'm gonna go lay in bed and watch a horror movie which you don't like. So that's kind of been like we each get our me time,
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been majorly into that.
That's awesome. So kind of just ending or wrapping things up here, is there anything coming up soon that you all would like to promote and share with our dear listeners and watchers?
I don't know if we have any projects coming up. I'm actually about to studio record the piece that I just wrote for Vicky Chow, which is available to watch. I think it's on Vimeo and my website and YouTube through Roulette. So I'm really excited to studio record that. And you just had an album come out
Just
recently.
had an album come out like 6 weeks ago now.
It feels like simultaneously like 3 days ago and also 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But it was about 6 weeks.
Yeah, I did an album with the New York City string-based group Desdemona. It's called Music for a Small Shelter. It's on all of the streaming places and stuff. But upcoming, yeah, I think I'm letting that germinate naturally.
We'll keep you posted on that. What our near future looks like.
Cool.
Am I ending this or you, Siad?
Well, you can end it.
Okay, fine. Well, thank you again, Cassie and Adam, for your music and for your words. And thank you for everyone who listened today. I have no idea when the next one of these is, but you can look on our website, and that'll be great. I also have no idea who's next, so I'm well informed. For more on us, please visit duotoronto.com and check out Cassie and Adam streaming on a streaming site near you. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.